I'm sure people wrote us off before the ball kicked off in Leon, and we went there and probably against the odds from just where each team is at, from the quality that's a team is the previous Mexican champion. They didn't give us a chance there. We came home with all things level, and we won that match. What gives me confidence is that I see our team every day. I see our team. There's a togetherness, there's a commitment, and there's a history here of winning. And then I take the information from leg one that gives me, the coach, confidence, which is we're in the game. We're in the game. It's 1-1 against a team that probably for a few months now hasn't been beaten, has been dominating and rolling through Mexican league. And we're right there. A lot of teams don't even score on them, let alone create tons of chances, and we did. And we're 1-1, and yeah, we let it slip. And they're a good team, and they put a lot on us in terms of pressure. But we gave up a couple of set pieces at that point, and it makes winning hard. But that's what gives me confidence, that I see our group every day. I believe in what we're doing here. I believe in these players with the utmost, and I take the real information from leg one.
TFC head coach Chris Armas talking about what's been so far in Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. And yes, it's been tough for TFC, taking on former Liga MX champions, dispatching them, and now taking on the current leaders in Liga MX standings and down 3-1 as we welcome Christian Jack to the show. Andy, Ollie, and Garrett still with you. It does feel a little different, though, this time, KJ, going into leg two. And now that you've had some time to digest leg one, what maybe troubled you the most from what you saw from the Reds?
Well, I think from Toronto FC's point of view, probably what troubles you the most is that Cruz Azul look built like a team who could win this tournament. You know, they are a true cup-winning team for me. The way that they defend the box, they narrow the spaces really well. They're excellent from set pieces. We'll get to TFC's troubles with them as well. That's probably a major concern at the moment, but at least they have addressed it. And I don't think this is just relevant to under Chris Armas, by the way. I don't think they were very good from set pieces last year either. They just happened to become a little bit more of a cluster at the moment. They're not that great from themselves from an attacking point of view either. So, look, I think, you know, there's a significant gap in quality at the moment, particularly when you look at where Cruz Azul are in their season, unbeaten in 17 games, the best team in Mexico on current form, and Toronto FC just starting their path and their journey. So there are enormous challenges here, Gareth, but I do think from Toronto FC's point of view, if they can avoid that difficult start, like conceding an early goal the way they did, try and stay in the tie, that will be the priority here.
Well, I'm just looking at this tie alone. I'm not looking big picture here for Toronto FC, but they've got to go out and score 3 goals. And based upon what we saw in the first leg, you just have to ask yourself, how are they going to do just that? For me, Josie Altidore just wasn't involved anywhere near enough in that game. And these are the types of matches that scream out for an Alejandro Pozuelo, someone that's not in the team. Osorio took up that position. Was he ideal? Is that his best spot as a lone number 10? I don't think so. He might be better off playing as an interior winger, maybe more of a central midfielder from a deep lying position, but that wasn't it for me. So you lacked any link-up play consistently in possession alongside Josie Altidore. And if you're going to go on and win this game, you're going to need to force mistakes, and Toronto FC, I think, did a nice job at that, creating chances through their press and in transition, but it's in possession. You're going to have to methodically break down this team. And if Altidore can't do it alone up top, or if they can't bring him into the game, I just wonder where the goals are going to come from right now.
Jonathan Osorio, the lone goal scorer as well in that leg one against Cruz Azul. You had alluded to it, KJ. Let's talk set pieces. In fact, heading into leg one, Ollie, you had mentioned, I want to see Toronto improve when it comes to set pieces, and then they go and give up 2 of the 3 from that problem. So, KJ, what story does this tell you about Toronto FC that they can't quite figure out these set pieces?
Well, it tells me that it's obviously been a bit of an enormous concern. It tells me that they need a lot more work on it. And it tells me that, obviously, as Chris Armas has alluded to, that they've spent a bit more time on the training pitch than they used to under the former coaching staff. So, look, again, it's all the cliches, but they're real. You know, it's commitment. You know, it's anticipation. It's hunger. You know, it's desire. Jonathan Osorio said in his press conference, you know, we will not be out-hungered in those moments. You know, you've got to be aware of those. So I think that they're aware of it. Obviously, it's cost them significant goals. You know, in the end of the day, we can all talk about they couldn't really get into the game against Cruz Azul in the first leg, but they lost the game because of set pieces. And I don't think they need to be doing that. You cannot hand gifts and presents to these teams that are winning games pretty handily in their own domestic league, Ollie. So they need to address it. They need to address it pretty quickly. And maybe the story will extend to a positive that later on in the season, they'll be glad of this because at least they're able to address it now when they could see that this was a concern early in the season.
Yeah, KJ, they look to me like a team that's struggling with a more zonal system, I think, than they've played before. And I don't think that zonal marking is inherently better or worse than man marking, but I do think man marking is more straightforward, right? You have your man, you stick to your man, you win the aerial duel if it comes your way, and everything is kind of clear. I think with zonal marking, it takes a bit more thinking, right? You've got your zone to control, but you have to make a decision. You know, you have to read the flight of the ball. You have to make a decision whether to attack the space or kind of stay where you are and stay put. You've got runners running around you, and you're wondering, should I be tracking someone? Should I hold my position again in my zone? There's just a lot more kind of decision making, I think, going on in a zonal system, and it takes time. So I'm sure they'll persevere with that and try and improve that and work on it in training. I do think in a knockout situation here where it is win and win by a margin or go home, I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe see them make some adjustments in the short term just to kind of mitigate that a little bit. Maybe go for more of a hybrid of zonal and man-to-man. Just do something that's a bit more familiar to the players when you're in this setting of, you know, you have to win this game by multiple goals or else your Champions League run is over.
Well, guys, we know it is a very busy stretch for Toronto FC from May 4th to May 15th. They play a total of 4 games, 3 in MLS, and then, of course, this match that we're talking about against Cruz Azul. And how you've already come to know Chris Armas, KJ, how do you think he's going to approach this stretch? Because this is what we always wonder, right? Do you play the young guys? Do you spread out the lineup? Or do you go for it each and every time?
Well, here they are in the Concacaf Champions League quarterfinal, playing in one of the most iconic stadiums on the planet, you know, in the Estadio Azteca. And I think he's the kind of guy who just goes for it. You know, for me, the level of engagement is so high right now because it is a new coach and because the goals are there for the new team to try and listen to him. I don't think he wants to take any kind of pressure off the pedal whatsoever. You've got to try and find a way to stay in the game as long as you can. Keep that belief high, ignite the flame, and don't let it go out as long as possible during the game. And that means keeping it close, keeping it at a level. If you just go down there and you take away some of the big personalities out there and you say, we're looking for the MLS season now, we play a few kids, and you suddenly get smashed. That's not the negative story you need. You need to play your best players, try and stay in the game. And yes, obviously the destination is to try and get to the semifinals, but I think even a positive performance will go a long way for them during that difficult stretch, Gareth, in the MLS coming up, regardless whether they move forward or not.
You have to play your best players. This is a competition that you work hard to get into for moments like this, to play in stadiums like this. You mentioned it, the Estadio Azteca. Jonathan Osorio said it earlier today. He's like, you get excited. He's excited already to get back to play in the stadium for the second time. Also, KJ, this is a game on a Tuesday. It's not a Wednesday, Saturday type situation. You have that extra day. And look, I think if you're a top player and Toronto FC has a lot of experienced players, you want to play against the best. You want to test yourself against the best. This is what you play for. So with all due respect to the Red Bulls on the weekend, you can play a little bit of a different team, maybe a younger group going into the weekend and worry about that later. And look, I think it'd be a shot in the arm for Armas and this group if they come away with a really solid performance. If they go there and win and don't advance, I just think that would be just a massive positive for this group, picking up momentum, reestablishing some of that belief we saw after the win against Lyon. And look, kind of that, you know, us against the world mentality. We can go on and beat the best teams in this region. That's what the club is all about, and that's what I think these players are all about as well.
Well, it appears for the second week in a row, they're going to give us a new player to talk about. Obviously, we chatted quite a bit about Jefferson Soteldo, and now there are reports that Toronto FC is getting set to sign 28-year-old Jamaican national Kamar Lawrence. He's been playing in Belgium, but yes, he, prior to that, was in Major League Soccer with New York Red Bulls. What do we know about him, and how do you think, KJ, he can help TFC?
Well, I've watched Kamar Lawrence for a long time. He's a player I like a lot. I think I voted him in an MLS 11. By the way, a fullback actually made an MLS Best 11, so he must be a good player. He's the only one with Justin Morrow to do it over the last decade. So if a fullback can get in that, every credit. So yeah, I like Lawrence a lot. He's a proper defender. He's not a player that will be bombing down the wings, and that might be a good balance with Richie Laryea. Some people will ask, what about Aro? Well, what about this for a different dimension? For me, when you play against some of the top teams, then you want to shut down both sides of the ball. For me, you can play Kamal Lawrence on the left-hand side. You can play Aro on the right. You can play Richie Laryea further forward. I think he's a dynamic player, Laryea, that can bring width on the right-hand side, particularly if Saltaldo's cutting in on the left. And the other thing you could do is you could play a back three as well. You could play Lawrence in the back three if Mavinga's fit and healthy to play in the middle, and still play Justin Morrow as well. Justin Morrow played about 46% minutes last year, Ollie, and I think they need to manage that by bringing in a proper player on the left-hand side to manage that balance rather than play Aro over there. It just brings a lot of strength and depth to the defense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that is the interesting question, I think. I don't think there's any doubt about Kamal Lawrence as a player. He's proven in MLS. He's exactly the kind of defender that TFC will be looking for. You know, someone who is athletic, who can play one-on-one. If that press gets broken and, you know, the back four is facing kind of a numbers-up situation, you want players who can move, right? Who can keep pace with the top forwards in the league and, you know, aren't going to need to be kind of playing in a packed, deep defense in order to succeed. And Kamal Lawrence certainly fits that profile. I think the question is, was this TFC's biggest need? You can make a case for it for sure, and I agree with a lot of what KJ has said, but when you look at centre-back and you look at Chris Mavinga's injury records, you look at potentially the lack of depth there. You know, they got down to Luke Singh pretty quickly here at the start of the season. Was that the bigger need than at left-back, where you have Justin Morrow, you have Aro, you have a couple of good options there? So I think that's up for debate, and it's a difficult question to answer because it's really going to depend on, you know, can Mavinga stay healthy and keep that partnership with Gonzalez intact?
Well, before we let you go, KJ, let's talk about the first new signing, which of course was Saltaldo. When can we expect to see him in the lineup?
Well, he's not in Mexico, as we know, as he continues to go through his quarantine. So, you know, not even the players have even had any kind of minutes with him on the training pitch yet. So I think that probably rules out this coming weekend as well against the Red Bulls. After that, as you mentioned, Andy, a very long stretch coming up with games coming thick and fast, midweek games to play 5 games in the 21 days to finish May. So Columbus midweek, you know, in 1 week's time could be a possible destination. If not, maybe, you know, Yankee Stadium, the small spaces he could certainly take advantage of there as well. So I think it's coming, but I think much like TFC fans are getting used to, maybe a little bit of patience on this one, just much like everybody else at the moment. Not right now is imminent, that's for sure.
Well, I was going to say, KJ, like, if I'm a TFC fan, I know that everyone wants to see the brand new toy, but the success of this team is really going to be defined by players like Pozuelo coming back into the team. Chris Mavinga, who is with the team in Mexico, who's a top 5 center back in all of Major League Soccer. And I disagree with your sentiment, Ollie. I think that left back or bringing another fullback was mandatory for this group. I think that Justin Morrow, if need be, push comes to shove, at this latter stage of his career, can probably play on the inside of center back now. They were just far too light at that position. So once you start plugging some of the holes, you know, of players not named Saltaldo. What about Akinola? Ayo Akinola hasn't really played much at all over the course of this season. So I think before you look at these players that are coming in, it's kind of the players within this group who have established themselves as some of the most important players. They need to get back on the field first and foremost to really, truly show what this group's going to be all about.